Out of the 7 million people on this planet, every year a handful are picked as the world's most powerful. The American business magazine Forbes comes out with this list. This year has some interesting changes. On number 1 is Chinese President Xi Jinping. He sees the top spot for the first time ever. He's been called the most powerful man on earth, especially after China's Congress amended its constitution in March. This broadened his influence. It eliminated term limits, making Xi Jinping president for life. He also enjoys a cult of personality not seen since Chairman Mao. Xi unseated Russian President Vladimir Putin, who now occupies the number 2 position. Putin has ruled Russia since May of 2000. This year, he was re-elected to a 4th term with nearly 77% of the vote. That's the largest margin of victory for any candidate for the office since the fall of the Soviet Union, making his entry into the list an obvious choice, some would say. 1 year into his term, President Donald Trump is on the 3rd spot. Trump has managed to grab headlines mostly for the wrong reasons. Scandals from his personal and business life abound. He's under investigation by multiple law enforcement agencies, but he's still the commander-in-chief of the world's greatest economic and military power, ensuring him this spot on the Forbes list. Another notable entry is that of Narendra Modi. He retains the 9th position. The Indian Prime Minister is one of 2 Indians who've made it to this list of 75 most powerful people in the world. Forbes claims that Narendra Modi remains a largely popular leader in India, in a country that has a population of more than 1.3 billion people. The magazine also cites Modi's decision to eliminate India's 2 largest banknotes in a bid to reduce money laundering and corruption, more popularly known here as demonetization. He has raised his profile as a global leader in recent years. Forbes said that Modi has also emerged as a key figure in the international effort to tackle climate change, as warming affects millions of his country's rural citizens. The only other Indian to make it to this list is Mukesh Ambani. Forbes said the billionaire chairs and runs Reliance, which is one of India's most valuable companies. Ambani has been included in the list for offering free domestic voice calls, dirt-cheap data services and virtually free smartphones to close to 160 million users. The youngest on the list is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. He's been credited with consolidating power beyond any doubt and taking control of his country. Forbes claims that the heir apparent will be the fulcrum around which West Asian geopolitics moves for the next generation. In November 2017, Mohammed bin Salman led an anti-corruption campaign, a so-called anti-corruption campaign. Some say it was for power consolidation. This campaign led to the arrest of many prominent citizens, including royals. Most of these were forced to turn over their fortunes. As a result of this campaign, 10 Saudi princes were dropped from Forbes' annual list of the world's billionaires. Out of the 75 in this year's list, only 5 are women, with only one of them making it to the top 10. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, she holds her position at number 4. On number 14 is Prime Minister of the UK, Theresa May. Christine Lagarde, who works to bring economic discipline to 189 countries, including China, Russia and the United Kingdom, is ranked at number 22. In a male-dominated industry, Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, has made her mark, having earned $22 million in 2017. She has the highest compensation of any leader of a Detroit Big 3 automaker. She makes it to the world's most powerful people's list. And lastly, at number 17 is the CEO of Fidelity Investment, Abigail Johnson, whose net worth is believed to be approximately $15.5 billion US. It's not the first time the Indian Prime Minister has made it to the Forbes list. For the last 5 years, Narendra Modi has been consistently featuring on this list. In 2014, when he took office, Modi was ranked number 15. He bettered his ranking the following year. In 2015, he jumped to the 9th position. He has maintained it since then. Has any Indian Prime Minister in the past made it to the top 10? No. Has any Indian Prime Minister ever made it to this list before Modi? Yes. Dr. Manmohan Singh featured on the power list for all 5 years of his second term, from 2009 to 2014. In fact, 2013. In 2009, Dr. Singh was on number 36. The following year, he jumped to the 18th spot. Quite a jump that. As the UPA-led government entered its 3rd year in power and all the scams unraveled, the economist turned politician slipped to number 19 and then to number 20 in 2012. A year before his term ended, Dr. Singh was relegated to number 28. That was in 2013. He was credited with being the architect of India's economic reform, but Forbes also said that the Oxford and Cambridge educated economist's quiet intellectualism was often seen as soft and timid. So more than 7 billion people living on this planet, Forbes picks only 75 of them for this power list. That is one person out of every 100 million. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India has been placed ahead of Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Apple CEO Tim Cook and UK Prime Minister Theresa May. World politics is changing, and that reflects in these changing ranks as well. US President Donald Trump, who is ranked number 3 on the list, increasingly finds himself isolated after he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord and now the Iran nuclear deal. India is now well positioned to play a major role in global affairs. Prime Minister Narendra Modi remains the most popular leader in this country. Since taking power, he has raised India's profile around the world with bold policy decisions, from dehyphenating Israel and Palestine to standing up to China over Doklam and then pressing the reset button very recently. So we ask if the 9th rank truly reflects his power and influence. Think about it. We also ask, what does Forbes consider as the ingredients of power? And what's the relevance of power lists in the age of social media? Here's a quick analysis.
Let's get the formalities out of the way first. Here are the criteria based on which Forbes has picked its list of the world's most powerful people. 75 people were picked for the world's 7.5 billion strong population. Basically, one person for every 100 million. Candidates were chosen based on 4 criteria. Does the person hold sway over a large number of people? What kind of financial resources are at her or his disposal? Does the candidate's power extend beyond a single sphere? And how effectively does she or he use that power? It's easy to see how China's President Xi Jinping topped the list with that kind of criteria. He's the president of the world's most populous country, heads its only political party and its military, again the world's largest. And with dissent dealt with surely and swiftly in China, he certainly knows how to use his power effectively too. But what about the inclusion of Angela Merkel? Is she the token woman in the top 10 this year, so Forbes could pat itself on the back for being gender neutral? Merkel has made the list ever since it started in 2009, except last year when there was no list at all. But her inclusion this year seems odd. Here's some of what Forbes says about why she was picked. Forbes calls Merkel Europe's de facto leader. In her achievements, they list her victory in a hard-fought election, her struggle to form a government, and how she finally agreed to form a grand coalition. Forbes calls the deal one that came at a high price for the German Chancellor. These achievements seem more like compromises. Merkel's election victory was anything but resounding. She's facing growing rancor at home over the migrant crisis. Additionally, as Europe's de facto leader, as Forbes calls her, she's been unable to prevent Donald Trump from undermining the Paris Accord, the Iran nuclear deal, and Washington's economic relationship with the EU. Perhaps the same can be said for France's Emmanuel Macron and Britain's Theresa May, who make the list at numbers 12 and 14 respectively. Macron has faced demonstrations at home. His bonhomie with Trump could do little to prevent the latter from exiting the Paris deal. In fact, it did little to prevent Trump from nixing the JCPOA too. Likewise, Mrs. May has faced setback after setback in her Brexit negotiations, been embarrassed by her foreign minister often enough, and lost overall majority in the British Parliament, all in the last year. What we're coming to is this: our power and its wielding, concepts that are beyond quantification. President Xi, for instance, isn't even on social media, a major indicator of influence in today's hyper-connected world. Pope Francis may head a 1.2 billion strong Roman Catholic population, but do all Roman Catholics look at him as a powerful figure capable of effecting change? And what does he mean to the rest of the 6.3 billion people in the world? After all, he's number 6 on the list. Closing thoughts? Perhaps the criteria needs an overhaul, or maybe the list just doesn't cut it anymore. Aisha Sindhu, WION.
Well, that's coming up ahead. For now, let's tell you about the biggest ever foreign direct investment deal in India. Walmart, the company known for its retail chains in the United States, will acquire a majority stake in Flipkart, the largest e-commerce company in India. This deal is valued at $16 billion. That will give Walmart 77% stake in Flipkart. Despite its majority holding, though, Walmart says that it will continue to back Flipkart's business interests in India. What does that mean? In a statement, Walmart said that it backs Flipkart's ambitions to become a publicly listed company. This deal will challenge Amazon's rise in the Indian market. The value of the e-commerce market is expected to cross $50 billion in this year itself. But it's not just the online retail space that both these companies are eyeing. Flipkart and Walmart say that they want to leverage neighborhood retail stores, also known as kiranas, to spread their business. Traditionally, Walmart is known as a big box retail player, but the company could be adopting a different strategy for the Indian market. Walmart's move into India is a significant one due to its large population. India is considered to be the largest and one of the fastest growing markets for retail in the world. This was one of the reasons why Walmart decided to cut its investment in British retail company Asda. By its own admission, Walmart wants to focus on emerging markets like India. This deal will allow Walmart to make a backdoor entry into the Indian retail space. Through Flipkart's e-commerce business, Walmart can set up its presence on the ground. How does it help Walmart? It saves the company regulatory and legal hurdles. Remember, India now allows 100% FDI in multi-brand retail, but the road is full of regulatory roadblocks. By making an entry through the online space, Walmart is basically circumventing all those troubles. Some changes are expected at Flipkart after this deal is cleared by the government's regulators. Members of the Walmart company will join the Flipkart board. Other investors like Tencent Holdings, Tiger Global Management and Microsoft will continue to hold their stakes in Flipkart. What happens to the founders? One of the co-founders of Flipkart, Sachin Bansal, is expected to exit the company. Binny Bansal, also a co-founder and chief executive of the company, will stay. This deal may benefit the Indian consumer, but it's not necessarily good news for the India story. The country's retail market is now ruled by two MNCs, Walmart and Amazon. For the moment, we turn to Russia, which celebrated Victory Day today. The grandeur of the Kremlin Palace was on display during President Putin's inauguration on Monday. Today, Moscow's Red Square flaunted Russia's military might. Our next report brings you the sights, sounds and stories of this spectacular ceremony.
It began at 10 a.m. Moscow time with the Russian national flag being brought out to the Red Square. The tune being performed was the Sacred War, an ode to the 4-year-long battle between the then Soviet Union and Germany and its allies, one known as the Great Patriotic War by the Russians now. To mark the beginning of the ceremony that remembers Soviet victory over Nazi Germany, the Russian Defense Minister General Sergei Shoigu inspected the parade in an armored vehicle. After he reviewed the parade units and welcomed the participants of the grand ceremony, the Russian Defense Minister went on to report to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and the President of the country, Vladimir Putin. President Putin made a long and moving speech valorizing the sacrifices of the war that went on for close to half a decade. And as he remembered the Great War, the Russian President had a word of caution for the current world order too.
Война всегда вызов самой жизни, всему лучшему в ней. Мы помним о трагедии 2 мировых войн, об уроках истории. Они не дают нам ослепнуть. За новыми угрозами проступают все те же старые уродливые черты: эгоизм и нетерпимость, агрессивный национализм и претензии на исключительность. 9 мая объединяет все поколения истории мужества. Мы понимаем всю серьезность этих угроз. Всем странам, всему человечеству важно осознать, что мир очень хрупок, и его стабильность укрепляет наше общее стремление слышать, доверять и уважать друг друга. Россия открыта к диалогу по всем вопросам обеспечения глобальной безопасности. готова к конструктивному, равноправному партнерству ради согласия, спокойствия и прогресса на планете. Сейчас наши сердца.
At 24 minutes past 10, the booming sounds of the Russian national anthem marked the beginning of the Great Parade, where over 13,000 military men were participating.
Шагом марш!
It opened with a march past of the drummers from the Moscow Military School, which was quickly followed by a march by the youngest participants of the parade, a company from the Suvorov Military School. The youngest paved way for the strongest, most efficient and most powerful units of the Russian army. Various cadets of the Russian army, navy and military police took to the Red Square in a grand display of might. The crowds cheered the coordinated steps of the cadets to the tunes of war songs. There was room for more cheer when the female graduates of military school establishments who hold the post of translators and communication specialists came to the Red Square. And then came the grand display of military weapons. A minute before the clock struck 11, the flypast began. The multi-purpose Mi-26 chopper and 4 Mi-8 helicopters led the charge. The Su-24M, MiG-29 SMT and Su-57 were all there. The Su-25 assault aircraft painted the sky over Moscow in the colors of the Russian flag. And with that, the parade came to an end. The grand event not just a reminder of the past, but also a reaffirmation of the military might of the world's largest nation. Bureau Report, WION.
Now let's tell you about possibly the biggest gainer. Saudi Aramco is the biggest oil producing company in the world. Fully owned by the Saudi government, Aramco has been described as the goose which lays the golden egg and supports both the Saudi government and the Saudi royal family. It will soon be listed on stock exchanges around the world. It is also credited with keeping up oil prices to scoop maximum profit.
Founded in 1933, Saudi Aramco operates the world's single largest hydrocarbon network. But owned by the Saudi government, its revenue earnings are confidential, and there are only estimates about the company's actual worth. The oil behemoth is pegged to be valued at anywhere from 450 billion to 2 trillion US dollars. Headquartered in Tehran in Saudi Arabia, Aramco's operations span the length and breadth of the globe. It is involved in exploration, production, refining, distribution and marketing of oil. Aramco produces 12% of all oil in the world. It pumps close to about 10.3 million barrels per day, which is 3 times more than its closest competitor. Although there is no concrete way of proving this, but estimates peg that Aramco owns 267 billion barrels of oil, which is more than the combined oil reserves found on the North American continent. Aramco sells almost 75% of all the oil it produces in the international market, keeping almost 25% for domestic use. The United States and China are the 2 biggest oil purchasers, buying over 1 million barrels each from Aramco. This is not the end of Aramco's oil-producing advantage. Apart from Kuwait, only Saudi Arabia can pump a barrel of oil for less than $10. To be precise, it costs just $8.98 to produce a barrel of oil for Saudi Arabia, while the cost of production is much higher for its rivals. Oil contributes a whopping 87% of revenue to the Saudi economy. As part of his reforms, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman intends to wean away the dependence of the kingdom and the royal family from Aramco. To achieve this, 5% of the company is expected to be listed on various stock exchanges around the world. If all goes to plan, Aramco shares could be listed on the stock exchanges of New York, London, Hong Kong and Riyadh. Crown Prince Salman estimates Aramco to be worth a whopping $2 trillion. By listing 5% of the company on the stock markets, Crown Prince Salman hopes to raise $100 billion. But for this target to be achieved, the oil prices will have to be substantially more than the $70 a barrel it is now. The sticking point in Aramco's IPO listing is the tax which Aramco pays to the Saudi government. There is little transparency on that front, but estimates peg that Aramco pays 93% of its revenue as tax to the Saudi government. There is no set date for Aramco's stocks to be listed. There is also speculation that Aramco stocks could be listed only at the Riyadh Stock Exchange for the Saudi royalty to maintain their grip. With US President Donald Trump pulling out of the nuclear deal, the oil prices are expected to rise higher, and it is Saudi Arabia's Aramco that looks perched on top to reap rich profits. Bureau Report, WION.
Will Iran quit the nuclear deal? If push comes to shove, will it quit the nuclear proliferation treaty altogether? Was Trump's speech justification enough for the withdrawal? For someone who ran against political correctness in the US, did he simply pander to his core constituents? How does Kim Jong-un in North Korea view Trump's pullout? Is Trump someone Kim thinks he can do business with? These are all questions to which there are no easy answers. But what is clear is that pulling out of a multilateral agreement cannot be a good advertisement for America or Trump. Not after he turned his back on the Paris Climate Accord and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The Iran move has pitted the US against its transatlantic allies. The leaders of the UK, France and Germany issued a joint statement regretting Trump's decision. It read, and I quote, "According to the IAEA, Iran continues to abide by the restrictions set out by the JCPOA in line with its obligations under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. The world is a safer place as a result. Therefore, we, the E3, will remain parties to the JCPOA. Our governments remain committed to ensuring the agreement is upheld and will work with all the remaining parties to the deal to ensure this remains the case." Even the United Nations nuclear watchdog confirmed that the nuclear-related commitments under the Iran deal are still being implemented by Tehran. Martin Indyk, a former US Special Envoy for Israel-Palestine negotiations, believes that Trump's move would add to Pyongyang's skepticism about Washington's sincerity. Trump is set to meet Kim Jong-un in just a few weeks from now. All of this begs the question, is Trump's America at all becoming great again? The jury is still out on that one.